Hey everybody, Scott Spreitzer here from DocSports.com. Welcome to our report for Friday, July 6, 2018. Free baseball pick coming up at the end of this video. Quick programming note, if you've yet to sign up and become a member at DocSports.com, rather easy to do. You click on the link below the video, set yourself up for a free $60 account. You can use it with my stuff, with any other handicapper at DocSports.com, and of course, any current sport it's available to use. Again, click on the link below the video, free $60 account on Friday. Well, what we do each and every Friday throughout the summer, started last week in the Mountain West Conference, will continue every Friday right up until week 1 of college football. It's Football Friday for us, and we're going to tackle a different conference each and every week. We'll also be doing this, of course, from a Vegas perspective. And what we're going to provide, because it would take forever to do a breakdown and preview of every single team. As you saw in the Mountain West preview last week, we're going to have a favorite, a mid-range odds team that we think has a shot to win that particular conference, and then a dark horse. So we'll do that again here in the Pac-12. And let's start with the chalk, and that is obviously the Washington Huskies. Very hyped team. Hype machine is definitely in full gear, and you can understand why. Peterson is going to return 16 starters to this team, and including the conference's best defense last year. They're going to bring back 9 starters from that defense from last season. The one thing that bothers me a little bit about Washington is that while they were against the run, they got to be better against the elite running backs. You'll remember last year they got torn up by Saquon Barkley. They got torn up by Bryce Love, and they're going to have to start out of the blocks in Atlanta, September 1st, against the Auburn Tigers. Pretty good running attack for the Auburn Tigers, so Washington better be up to the task. I'm interested in that game, even though it's outside of the conference, because this team is being so hyped right now for a potential Final Four appearance, college football playoff appearance, that if they were to lose that game, and there are 2.5 to 3 point underdogs in that contest, if they were to lose that game just 2 weeks later after a date with North Dakota, they open up conference play. That'll be on the road against Utah. Now, on a neutral site, my power ratings say that the Washington Huskies would be 10 points better than the Utah Utes. But of course, as I mentioned, this will be a Saturday. ESPN cameras in Salt Lake in Utah, and that's never easy. So if they get off to the win, fine, against Auburn. If they lose to Auburn, it will be interesting to see what their mindset is 2 weeks later when they kick off the Pac-12. Again, getting 2.5 to 3 points against the Auburn Tigers, that game in Atlanta. When you look at the schedule for Washington, they've got at Utah, at UCLA, at Oregon in their first 4 conference games. Final 5 games, pretty easy. They do get the 4-year starter back at quarterback, and I mentioned what's going on in defense. They also have the great running game to bring into the 2018 season. Now, I think that Washington is probably going to go through the Pac-12, maybe finish with 1 loss after it's all said and done, which would get them into a college football playoff as long as they win that Pac-12 title. I do believe they will, and they are the favorite. They're about plus $1.25, plus $1.30 to win the Pac-12. Now, Stanford, they're the second best team on paper in the league, and according to my power ratings, but short odds. Same with USC, right there with Stanford. Throw Oregon into the mix. They're all generally in that plus 400 to plus 800 range to win the conference. So those would be the 3 teams as far as mid-range teams that I might look at, and I'll talk a little bit more about Stanford in just a bit. The dark horse, though, for me, it came down to Utah or Arizona as far as what I was going to do here, and I'll side with the Utes, although they're nearly interchangeable as far as the talent on paper. But, of course, Arizona going to be dealing with a new coaching staff, and I don't know that that's a negative, but it is a situation you got to factor in going into the season. Their power ratings, both Utah and Arizona, pretty close for my power ratings, though. But for Utah, you got 9 back on offense. Healthy Tyler Huntley at quarterback. You know how well he can run with the football. And it'll be the second season now that Utah is going to run that up-tempo or high-speed offense with a downfield passing game. That's a plus, obviously, being in year 2 of that. The protection up front also because of that should be much better than it was a season ago, and they gave up a ton of plays behind the line of scrimmage in 2017. I expect that to be a plus. No more Darren Carrington, but the receiving core is excellent for the Utah Utes going into this season. As far as the defense is concerned, I want to see the old-fashioned Utah up-front defensive push that we saw before last year. Not as crazy about the potential for sacks from last year's defensive line, and I think that's got to get a little bit better this season. I do believe it will because the talent is there. Linebackers took a little bit of a hit with starters leaving, but again, the talent is there. Secondary will be good. And remember, despite the fact that Huntley was banged up at times, despite the fact that they didn't have your typical pressure up front on defense from a defensive front line that we're used to out of the Utah Utes. Remember, this team lost to Washington, Stanford, and USC by 3 points, 3 points, and 1 point, respectively. Grand total of 7 points to those three teams, even though last year's version wasn't as good on paper, not as power rated as high as this year's version with the Utah Utes. I really think that 6-3 is the likely end of the season scenario for Utah as far as their conference record is concerned. Potential for 7-2. It's not out of the question, but it is a bit of a stretch, by the way, folks. They're home against Washington, Arizona, USC, Oregon, all good to have those teams at home. Stanford will be their toughest roadie, by the way, of the season. Having said that, looking at a dark horse, I think Utah right now at about plus 1,500. Not a bad way to invest a little bit of our money, and we'll put a little bit of our bankroll on Utah as a dark horse. Again, Washington around plus 120, plus 130 as the favorite. As far as the teams in between, kind of a mid-range odds type of team between Washington and Utah, as I mentioned a little bit ago. Stanford, USC, they're the best, real close behind the Oregon Ducks. USC plus 400, Stanford plus 525 or so. Week 1 spot, by the way. By the way, we do like those teams. We just like Stanford just a tad more than USC because of those odds at plus 525. However, you could counter and say that Utah, playing in the South, doesn't have to overcome a Washington in the North to get to the Pac-12 title game, and they are plus 400. Those are a couple of the teams that we look at as far as those mid-range odds are concerned. Week 1 spot, we talked about this last week when we featured the Mountain West Conference because our favorite Week 1 spot by a Mountain West team happens to be our favorite Week 1 spot of a Pac-12 team. September 1st, you've got USC hosting UNLV. UNLV likely a 6-win team this season. USC could very much challenge Washington in the Pac-12 title game if they can get past Utah and get out of the South, which they have the talent to do, even without Sam Darnold. But again, couple of, little details changing for USC this year going into this season, including not having Darnold. And although they should be your favorite to win the South, I just think it's a situation where there are a 26.5 to 27-point favorite at home to UNLV. They can easily overlook the Rebels. The Rebels likely a 6-win team, can go bowling this year in all likelihood. But the problem is USC's also got Stanford on deck. They're going to be much more focused for Stanford in the month of August leading into the opening portion of the season than they are against UNLV. Listen, I think, like I said last week, comfortable win here for USC, but a decent, comfortable cover for UNLV. 42-24 final score in that neighborhood is what I'm projecting for that game. So still, again, just like last week in the Mountain West, now we're in the Pac-12, my top play in Week 1, UNLV, plus 27.5 points over the USC Trojans. All right, guys, that is our Pac-12 look. Free pick in baseball in just a moment. Next week on Friday, we'll jump into another conference, give you our favorite, our dark horse, and our mid-range teams that we're looking to plunk our money down on. And again, we could spend a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour on these videos breaking down all the teams, but we'd rather do it this way, and then as we get closer to the season, spend a little bit more time getting detailed from team to team, and more than that, even more than that, I should say, detailed on game by game what's going on in their first games of the season. We'll do that come later in August, like in mid-August. But for now, that'll do it for the Pac-12. Washington plus $1.20, plus $1.30 we think is worth plunking some money down on. Also, Stanford at plus 525 and the dark horse Utah, as we mentioned, around plus 1,500 or so. All right, Friday free pick in baseball in just a moment. First, a quick note right now over at DocSports.com. We do have CFL action up. We've got a Friday game and a Saturday game. 7-star play still yet to go. We passed Thursday's CFL game. 96-64 is our 60% run over the last few years in Canadian football. We've also got premium action going on in Major League Baseball, again, exclusively at DocSports.com. But what you want to do, boy, I tell you, the free picks have been nice. Yesterday, as I mentioned, we were able to cash the over. Not literally, but the over was in the books in the 5th inning. 14 runs put up in the first 5 innings between the Marlins and the Nats. They end up putting up 26 runs between the two teams last night in that game overall. Free Friday pick, we're getting back to New York Yankees, who are right now laying about $1.40. Sonny Gray over Gaviglio. Gray hasn't figured out Yankee Stadium. We all know that. His home numbers are not good since he's been with New York. However, he's been excellent on the road. His ERA, below 3.3. His whip is about 1.14. And just look at these numbers that I jotted down in my notes. His road pitching, by the way, he's allowed just 2 home runs in 46 2/3 innings pitched. That's a 0.39 home runs per 9 innings pitched ratio. In the Bronx at Yankee Stadium, 36 innings pitched, 8 home runs allowed. That's 2 full home runs allowed per 9 innings pitched at home. Of course, he's on the road today. 0.75 ERA and just 14 base runners allowed in 12 innings in 2 starts at Rogers Center this year against Toronto. 16 punch-outs in 12 innings pitched at what he did in those 2 games. And if you go back to his 4 previous starts last couple of years before this year at Rogers, he had a .211 batting average against. Excellent. ERA just over 2. Excellent. I think he's going to do it again, guys. I'm going to back Sonny Gray and the New York Yankees, laying about $1.40 as we cut this video, our free pick for Friday. All right, best of luck on Friday's card, both with premium plays, with the free pick, whatever you decide to play for yourself. We hope you put them all in the win column. We'll be back Saturday morning, 4 a.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Pacific time, and we'll have our normal baseball report available at that time. Best of luck on Friday. Put them in the win column. I'm Scott Spreitzer, DocSports.com.